They called it the walking fire. But to the men who carried it, it was a death sentence. The Browning automatic rifle, or BAR, promised unstoppable firepower in the trenches and forests of World War II. In reality, it turned the man behind it into a target. He was the first to shoot and the first to die. It's 1944. The hedgerows of Normandy burn under artillery fire. American infantrymen crawl through mud and shattered wheat fields, hearts pounding against their helmets. Machine guns chatter from German positions, precise, relentless. A young private yells out, "Bar up front." And there he comes, the bar gunner. A man bent forward under nearly 40 pounds of steel and ammunition, crawling toward the front line. His weapon, sleek, heavy, brutal, glints in the smoke. He's the squad's backbone. The one who's supposed to pin down the enemy while everyone else moves. But every German within earshot knows the sound of that gun, the deep, rhythmic hammering of a .30-06 automatic rifle. And the second it opens up, every rifle, MG, .42, and sniper scope turns his way. A soldier from the 26th Infantry Division once said, "The moment a bar fired, the Germans knew exactly who to kill first." The battlefield wasn't kind to heroes. In the chaos of St. Lo, during the push through France, bar men led assaults through minefields and machine gun nests. When the squad hit dirt, the bar man had to stay up. His job was to suppress. His silhouette stood higher than anyone else's. And when his 20-round magazine ran dry, which took less than 3 seconds of full auto fire, he'd duck, reload, and pray. The average life expectancy of a bar gunner in heavy combat? Often measured in minutes. The truth is, every squad needed a bar. But no one wanted to be the bar man. Private Sam Hutton, a farm boy from Kansas who carried one through Belgium, said it plainly. It wasn't the weight that got you. It was the attention. Because carrying a bar meant you weren't just another soldier. You were the squad's machine gun, its pride, and its coffin handle. The squad depended on you. The enemy hunted you. The Browning automatic rifle wasn't born in World War II. Its story began in the dying days of the First. In 1917, legendary gun designer John Moses Browning presented the U.S. Army with something radical, a rifle that could fire like a machine gun but be carried like a standard infantry weapon. It was light enough to move with, yet powerful enough to lay down suppressive fire. The Army loved it. When the BAR M1918 entered service in 1918, it was marketed as the tool for walking fire, a tactic where troops advanced while firing from a hip, keeping the enemy's head down. But by the time it saw real action in France, the war was ending. The rifle barely made a mark in World War I, but it left a promise hanging in the air. Next time, this would change the battlefield. Between the wars, the BAR underwent several updates, the M1918A1, then the M1918A2, which would become the definitive World War II version. By the time America entered the conflict in 1941, the BAR was already an old design, but it was all they had to bridge the gap between rifles and heavy machine guns. The M1918A2 fired the same .30-06 Springfield round used in the M1 Garand, a massive cartridge with devastating range and power. It could fire 500 to 650 rounds per minute, though most gunners used short bursts to control recoil and conserve ammo. It had 2 firing modes, slow and fast. Slow was for accuracy, fast was for panic. And panic was common. Each BAR came with 20-round magazines, meaning constant reloading. In a firefight, a BAR gunner might carry up to 12 magazines, that's 240 rounds, all weighing nearly 10 pounds just in ammunition. Now add the gun itself, at nearly 20 pounds, plus gear, water, grenades, rations, and you've got one man hauling the weight of 2. But the squad needed him. In U.S. doctrine, the BAR wasn't just another rifle, it was the heart of the fire team. Each 12-man squad had one BAR gunner, one assistant gunner, and riflemen to support them. When they advanced, the BAR led. When they retreated, the BAR covered. It was their lifeline, and their curse. In the Pacific, Marines lugged the BAR through Guadalcanal, Tarawa, and Peleliu, steaming jungles where every footstep could mean death. The Japanese often targeted the BAR gunner first, recognizing his distinctive silhouette and thunderous burst. Private William Manchester, who fought on Okinawa, wrote, "The BAR was our voice in battle, deep, angry, unmistakable. The Japs hated that voice, and they tried to silence it fast." In Europe, the BAR became the squad's hammer in hedgerow warfare. Germans used MG-42s, belt-fed machine guns that could fire 1,200 rounds per minute, nearly twice the BAR's rate. So American tactics relied on quick movement. The bar would lay down suppressing fire while riflemen flanked. It sounded good on paper. But in practice, one man with 20-round mags against a nest of MG-42s was like trying to plug a dam with your hands. The bar's design was a compromise, half rifle, half machine gun, fully imperfect. It had no quick-change barrel, meaning it overheated easily under sustained fire. The bipod was flimsy and often removed to save weight. And it jammed when filled with mud, which, in France and the Pacific, was almost always. Still, soldiers respected it. When it worked, the bar hit hard. One burst could shred a wall, or cut through multiple enemies. Its recoil was manageable, its fire accurate, its noise terrifying. There was a saying among GIs: "A bar will save your life." Once. One story comes from Sergeant John Basilone, the Marine who famously held off a Japanese assault on Guadalcanal in 1942. Basilone used multiple bars and machine guns to hold his position after his crew was wiped out. He was later awarded the Medal of Honor. He called the bar the last breath between us and them. That's what it was, a weapon of desperation. In the field, bar gunners were often the most respected and pitted men in the squad. When one fell, someone else had to pick it up. And that person usually didn't last long either. By 1944, the bar had seen action in nearly every major theater: Normandy, Italy, North Africa, the Pacific Islands. It became the face of American infantry firepower. But ask any veteran, and they'll tell you the same thing. Carrying the bar was both an honor and a death wish. The rifle made you feel invincible until you pulled the trigger. Because that sound, that deep mechanical roar, was the loudest thing on the battlefield. And it told everyone where to aim. The story of the bar isn't about the metal, the rounds, or the specs. It's about the men who carried it. The ones who walked upright when everyone else crawled. The ones who fired back even when they knew it made them a target. The ones whose names never made a home. They were the firepower and the sacrifice of the American infantry. But the truth of why they rarely survived, that's darker. Because the bar was designed to be the squad savior, but in war, saviors don't live long enough to be saved. To understand why the bar gunner rarely survived, you have to see war not from a general's map, but from a soldier's mud-soaked trench. Picture this: a platoon moves through the French countryside, crouched low between shattered stone walls. The air smells of cordite and rain. When the ambush hits, crack, 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 everyone dives for cover. Everyone except one man, the bar gunner. He has to stand. He has to shoot back. In that instant, every German eye and every German scope locks on him. The bar's firepower was unmatched for a single soldier, but came at a price. The gun's distinct sound, its limited magazine capacity, and the tactical role it played meant the bar gunner became the most visible, audible, and vulnerable target on the battlefield. The Germans knew this. The Japanese knew this. Even American officers knew this, but there was no other choice. Each infantry squad had one bar gunner. He was the squad's automatic rifleman, responsible for delivering suppressive fire. Without him, the squad couldn't maneuver. That's why, tactically speaking, the bar gunner was a priority target for enemy snipers and machine gunners. One veteran from the 90th Infantry Division later said, "You didn't have to see him to know where he was. You could hear him. Once the bar started up, you knew the enemy was coming for you." The bar weighed around 19 pounds empty and over 22 loaded. Add to that a dozen magazines, grenades, and a pack, and the gunner carried almost 70 pounds of gear. In the fields of Normandy or the jungles of the Pacific, that weight was a killer before a bullet ever was. Soldiers called it the Iron Baby, heavy, awkward, impossible to love. Some tried to lighten the load by ditching the bipod or shaving off parts. Others learned to fire it from a hip, a technique that looked heroic in training films, but in real life was a gamble with recoil and accuracy. Still, the bar gunner couldn't move like the rest of the squad. He couldn't crawl fast, couldn't dive low, couldn't blend in. He had to stay up, firing bursts, while everyone else hugged the dirt. And when his 20-round magazine ran dry after 3 or 4 seconds, the world went quiet, just long enough for the enemy to notice where the fire came from. Because the bar chewed through ammo so quickly, gunner and assistant gunner often ran low within minutes of combat. Resupply under fire was nearly impossible. Sometimes riflemen would share their ammunition pouches just to keep the bar going. Other times, when the assistant was killed, the gunner had to carry his own extra mags, which made him even slower and heavier. Private First Class Richard Rogers recalled, "Once the shooting started, you were married to that gun. You couldn't run, couldn't hide. You were the noise, the fire, the reason everyone else was still alive. But that also meant you were the reason the enemy kept shooting. Another fatal flaw: the bar couldn't handle sustained fire. It didn't have a quick-change barrel, unlike true light machine guns like the German MG-34 or MG-42. After a few magazines, the barrel would glow red. Oil would sizzle off it. And if you kept firing, it could seize, warp, or cook off rounds by itself. In the middle of combat, that meant disaster. So bar gunners learned to fight with restraint, short, controlled bursts, never full auto, unless desperate. But in desperation, all control goes out the window. When a squad was pinned down, the bar gunner had to give them a way out. Even if that meant burning his barrel, emptying every mag, and drawing every bullet his way. He became the center of gravity in a firefight, both for his men's survival and for his enemy's wrath. Unlike the heavy machine gun teams who operated from cover or behind sandbags, bar gunners fought in the open. They were assault troops, the first ones in, often the last ones standing. In the Battle of the Bulge, bar gunners were seen firing from ditches, doorways, even from behind frozen corpses for cover. In the Pacific, Marines strapped bars to tree roots or used them from prone positions to hold off bonsai charges. But against an MG-42 spitting 20 rounds a second, even the best cover wasn't enough. Veteran George Kramer put it bluntly: the bar was your best friend until someone saw you use it. Then it became your coffin. The U.S. military knew the survival rate of bar gunners was low, but they also knew their effectiveness was irreplaceable. A squad without its bar was just a collection of rifles. A squad with one had a fighting chance. And so, men kept picking them up, one after another. There's a reason so many Medal of Honor citations mention bar gunners. Because their job forced them into the line of fire again and again. They didn't have the luxury of retreat. They didn't have the option to take cover. Their weapon defined their fate. In countless reports from the European and Pacific theaters, bar gunners are described as holding the line, covering retreat, advancing under fire. All those phrases mean the same thing. He stood up when everyone else couldn't. But standing up in war has a cost. Even the best trained, bravest bar men often fell before their squads reached the objective. And when one went down, someone else would crawl out to take his place. The gun would keep firing, but the man behind it almost never lasted long. When the war ended in 1945, the bar had earned its place as one of the most respected and feared infantry weapons ever made. But it had also proven something else: that no single soldier could carry the burden of a machine gun and live long doing it. In the years that followed, militaries around the world studied the bar's performance. The verdict was clear: it was powerful, reliable, and deadly, but outdated. By the 1950s, the U.S. military began replacing the bar with true squad automatic weapons that offered belt-fed ammunition, lighter weight, and changeable barrels. The M60 machine gun, inspired by the German MG-42, became the new backbone of American firepower. It was heavier, yes, but it allowed sustained fire without constant reloading. The bar, meanwhile, faded into the background, relegated to National Guard units and foreign allies. It saw limited use in Korea and even early Vietnam, but by the late 1960s, it was officially retired. Still, its DNA lived on. Modern automatic rifles, from the M249 SAW to the FN-MAG, owe their existence to the bar's concept: mobile firepower in the hands of a single infantryman. For many veterans, the bar was more than a weapon. It was a memory burned into the senses. The smell of gun oil and hot brass. The deep thud of its recoil. The weight pressing against the shoulder, the ears ringing after every burst. Some loved it. Others hated it. But all respected it. The weapon gave them the power to fight, and took from them the power to survive. Today, in museums and private collections, the bar sits behind glass, polished, silent, almost noble. But for those who remember carrying it, it's not nostalgia they feel. It's a kind of grief. Because the bar wasn't just a machine, it was a burden of courage. It represented every soldier who stood taller than he should have. Every man who exposed himself so his squad could live. Every heartbeat that didn't make it back across the channel. In the words of one old veteran interviewed in the 1980s, "The bar didn't kill me. The job did. But I'd do it again because someone had to hold the line." The U.S. military would later recognize the tactical flaw: no soldier should be the single source of suppressive fire. That's why today's infantry uses distributed firepower: lighter, faster, more sustainable systems shared among teams. No one carries the burden alone anymore. Not like the barmen did. But the lessons they left behind, the courage under impossible odds, still echo through military doctrine. The bar promised dominance, but it delivered sacrifice. It gave squads hope in the face of overwhelming firepower, and it gave history some of its bravest moments. Yet every shot fired from it came, with a cost measured not in bullets, but in blood. The bar gunner's story isn't one of failure, it's one of endurance. He was the man who stood when everyone else fell. The one whose job guaranteed his death, yet he did it anyway. That's why the bar gunner rarely survived in battle, not because he was unlucky, but because he was the first one in and the last one out. The Browning automatic rifle remains a symbol of bravery and brutality, a masterpiece of design that demanded too much from the men who carried it. They weren't just soldiers. They were the fire that kept the rest alive. And when their guns finally went silent, so did the heartbeat of the squad.